Okay, let's say you have a text file, such as this Word document. Actually, I'm viewing it in the Apple Pages app, but it actually is a Word file. Anyway, you need to get it into InDesign. Now, the easiest method is just to select some text and copy and paste it. And while this often works just fine, especially for small amounts of simple, unformatted text, I really don't recommend it for anything more than a paragraph or two. And I certainly wouldn't use copy and paste for any text that was formatted or included foreign language or special characters. I've just seen too many problems over the years with text showing up totally wrong after pasting it. Instead, I strongly recommend that you use the place command in InDesign. It's far more reliable. Let me show you. I'm going to switch back to InDesign, and then I'll go to the File menu and choose Place. Or I could press Command-D on Mac or Control-D on Windows. Now, I'm going to select that text file. Like I said, this is simply a Word document, but it could be a text or an RTF file, and then I'll click Open. Because I did not have any frame selected on my page, InDesign loads the place cursor with that story. If I had an empty frame selected, the story would have gone right into it. But here, to place a story inside my InDesign document, I'm going to move my cursor up to the left corner until I see a subtle but important change. That black arrow turned to a white arrow. You may have to squint to see it, but it's there. That white cursor means that when I click, it's going to snap to the margin guides. So I'm going to get as close as I can to those guides, but I don't need to worry too much about it. Now I'll click, and it'll make a text frame and flow the text into it. Now notice that this document had no text frame on the page. There's also no frame on the master page. It's just a blank document. Also, if I open the Pages panel, you'll see that there's only one page in this document. However, I happen to know that this is a much longer story. This should have filled multiple pages. I really wish I could get the entire document into InDesign. Fortunately, you can. So let me show you how. I'll undo this with a Command-Z or Control-Z on Windows, and that reloads the place cursor for me. And now I'm going to place this text file again, but with a modifier key. I'm going to hold down the Shift key, and when you press the Shift key, the cursor changes a little bit. You get this kind of sneaky S shape in there, and that indicates that when I click, it's going to flow all the text. So once again, I'll move that cursor to the upper left corner, and I still have the Shift key held down, and now I'll click. This time, InDesign not only imports just that one page, but the whole text story. And it created a bunch of pages for me, and on each of those pages it created a new text frame, and then it threaded the text from one page to the next automatically. So that Shift key modifier is really important when you're importing a long story. Now, there's one more thing that I want to point out here. Look at the formatting in here. It looks much nicer than it did in my word processing program, right? Let me go back to Pages and show you. There we go. Here, it's all in Arial, kind of clunky and probably easy to edit, but it's not very pretty. But here in InDesign, it looks different. How did that happen? Well, I'm going to be talking about paragraph styles and character styles in a later chapter, but I do want to point out right now that if the styles are named exactly the same between Word and InDesign, then InDesign will throw away the original boring formatting, and it'll use the formatting that's defined in the InDesign document instead. In this case, if I look at the Paragraph Styles panel over here, I can see that I have a lot of styles in here, and they're named exactly the same as they were in Word. Now, this workflow is typically what you want, so it's really helpful to make sure that you have the same names in your Word or Pages document and your InDesign documents. Now, a moment ago, I mentioned something about threading, the fact that this story threads from this page down to these other pages. Well, what's that about? How can you manually thread stories from one text frame to another? Well, that's what I'm going to cover in the next movie.